The White House did say it is low-keying these inaugural festivities because of the economy, but somehow cutting yourself down to 2 presidential balls doesn't exactly strike me as sacrifice as much as a slap in taxpayers' face. To Joe Perri, Marco Latini, and Crystal Wright. Not exactly partying, more like watching and worrying. What do you make of what's going on, Joe?
Well, really what has happened is the administration has brought back the specter of uncertainty. We're in the trenches. We're lending money. Banks like Gold Coast really look to help small businesses out, help them realize their dreams, help them have their businesses grow. And what the administration has done with the tax hikes that will affect these small businesses, they've essentially...
Have you seen that?
...put a damper. Yes. I must speak to at least close to 100 small businessmen each and every week. We are out in the trenches. We're seeing it, talking about it, feeling it, touching it. We're not like the generals in Washington who are in their cushy offices.
You're on the field.
We're on the field, like MacArthur, like Patton, hearing their dreams, aspirations.
You know what worries me, Crystal, as I get ready to go down there for this inauguration, and these are all, quadrennially big events and what have you, Republican or Democrat. What worries me, though, is that I think much of the message of the election that got a lot of those folks there is lost, that the president won an election. You could even go so far as to say he won the right to raise taxes on the rich. He didn't get a pass, nor did Washington get a pass on addressing the underlying spending. And it would almost seem as if they're reading into the election that, and it worries me. Should I be worried?
You should be worried, but more importantly, the American people should be worried. Because when I watch the president's second term unfold, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Laugh-In or Saturday Night Live, because, Neil, as you point out, every other day we hear from the credit rating agencies that debt and our spending is threatening the future of America and our credit rating and our ability to continue to lend money to the world, right? And we hear from corporate America. Joe has just made the case for small business owners. And corporate America is sitting atop of almost $2 trillion in cash because everybody's afraid. They don't know where this train wreck of a second administration is going. And back to the president, he sat there in physical cliff negotiations with Speaker Boehner and said, "John, I'm really tired of you telling me that we have a spending problem. Quit it." Okay, Mr. President, you know what I expect him to say, Neil, at his second inaugural as he puts his hand on Martin Luther King Jr.'s Bible and Lincoln's? I expect him to look at the American people in the face and say, "Ask not what you can do for your country. Ask for what your country and government can do for you." This is awful. We have a $16.4 trillion debt and mounting, and the president has dared Republicans to call him on his spending problem. Folks, if you don't think you have jobs now, you're not going to have them in another, 4 years.
Think about it. Whether you're on the right or the left, we have a very brief honeymoon period, window, whatever you want to call it, in any new administration to attack something that might be controversial, and certainly, let's say, reining in entitlements, maybe slowing the growth of the military, an anathema to Republicans. It fits that description. But if you don't do it in that immediate period, you never do. And so it's put off for another few years. That's why I'm reading into these preparations for the inauguration and wondering, where is the talk of this? It might pop up in the president's speech. It might pop up in remarks I get out of officials along a parade route. But I'm worried. Should I be?
Well, Neil, let's look at what we've gotten so far. With this election, we've gotten Obamacare, which we know it's going to bring higher costs to small businesses like myself, but we're still not sure exactly what that figure is going to be. We've gotten tax increases. Now, albeit it went from the $250,000 limit to $400,000, but at the end of the day, it's still a tax increases on small businesses and entrepreneurs like myself, who, I remind you, many years may have gone with little or no pay, have risked absolutely everything. At times, we've even mortgaged our house for our business. And then when we finally do make it and reach a certain income level, the government steps in and takes more of our money. Somehow that, to me, is not a pro-growth policy and doesn't encourage growth.
Joe, are you seeing growth, though, on your, to his point, are you seeing some pickup in loan activity? because the argument you hear in the White House and other Democrats is that that might be the quiet win behind our back. That might be the pickup that we're seeing in housing, in manufacturing data, and in some of these job figures that's picking up that might ease angst like yours.
No, we're actually, what we're seeing is in the past 6 months there was that glimmer of hope, the glimmer where the small businessmen and the banks were together and they said, well, gee, maybe I will look forward and maybe things will
what's
get
worrying
better.
them now? What do they see now that's gone?
Now they see all the issues in Washington going on. They see
they've got some sense of assurance that they now know how much taxes went up. Is it that they fear taxes going up more? What do they fear?
Yeah, they're uncertain. They fear that they can't trust the administration.
I see. Crystal, that's your point, right? There's a sense that we're not over the worst of it? Because the reason I mentioned, looking at the markets, looking at all the money that's been going at the corner of Wall and Broad, it's expressing of late some confidence that maybe isn't being reflected here. And the White House folks say that's the economy's stupid. It's percolating again. You say no.
No. And I think Joe alluded to this. He touched upon it just now. And many economists are talking about the fact that the worry is coming from corporations, both big and small businesses, not hiring, Neil. And that's because they can't trust this president to be an honest negotiator. So the Speaker of the House and the Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, gave the president what I call tax blood. He said, okay, we're gonna give in, we're gonna let you raise taxes on the rich, which only are gonna reduce your $1 trillion deficit spending each year by about 5%, folks. So they gave them that. And then what does he come back with? We want more. I want more tax hikes, which aren't gonna do anything to calm the debt and the spending. He's not willing, and so I think back to what Joe said, I think Marco said this too, small business owners and large corporations can't trust the president. That's why they're sitting atop all this cash and not
Marco,
hiring.
you see
that
nothing,
doesn't bode well.
I'm sorry, Marco, quickly, you see nothing to dissuade you or some of your colleagues from getting off that.
Well, see, businesses are still growing, Neil, but they're not growing as much as they otherwise would. And that uncertainty has a very real trickle-down effect. I'll use us for an example. We're building a new Gia Pronto restaurant right now. I would have loved to have borrowed the total investment from people like Joe and from Gold Coast Banking, but there's no way I'm going to do that based on the uncertainty. So what I do is I go ahead and I borrow less than I would otherwise need. And I do things like buy refurbished equipment instead of new, which doesn't help our manufacturing sector. I do things like manage the project in-house as opposed to hiring a general contractor, which does nothing to employ people in construction. So there are very real trickle-down effects of that uncertainty, and it's not just looking at our businesses growing or not. It's also saying that trickle-down effect of that uncertainty is having a negative effect, because even though some people like me are still growing, we are not maybe growing at the pace we otherwise would have, and we are being much more conservative in how we grow.
Well, we'll see if that's reflected this weekend and certainly next week.